Good evening. Your time now is 5:52. I'm Jeannette Reyes.
And I'm Mona Abdi, and this is Off the Record.
Not for real. This is Off the Record.
I'll never forget, she called me into her office and she was like, shut the door. I was like, oh,
That's never
not,
good.
not we're shutting we're shutting the door. And she was like,
Meet Imani Ellis, founder and CEO of CultureCon and the Creative Collective.
CultureCon? Oh, that sounds cute.
Born in her living room with just 10 people, it's now the largest and fastest growing conference for Black and Brown creators and a true creative homecoming.
started with 100 people, and then 500, and then 2,000, and then 10,000. I don't even know how I was operating at that level. I think there has to be a form of like obsession.
With how many hours you were spending, for you, what was it that you were putting on the back burner?
What was breaking was like my mental health. I realized that I had to leave my dream job for my next dream job.
Have there been moments where you really do have to shut things down or to assert yourself?
Can I tell you all a confession?
What is the mess? When was something so bad that you were just like, you really screwed up?
How would you advise someone who wants to differentiate between somebody dimming their light and somebody really giving them constructive criticism?
You've got it. I have all types of mentors. The number one way I've gotten mentors is...
Did you catch a stray like I did?
Oh my, this entire interview, I'm just like, attack, straight to the face.
Imani, welcome to the group chat.
Thank you for having me. I've been waiting all week for this.
Oh, we're so
Listen,
excited.
We already admitted to you that this is partially selfish. We are personally fascinated by you, and we feel like you have so many gems to share. We could talk about pivoting, how career and community can coexist, all of the things.
Creativity, so many things.
Oh my gosh, everything, all the things.
So first, let's start with just how would you describe yourself? Who is Imani?
Ooh, now see, I love that question because it's what got me into all of this. Was I've always been put into a box, and I just was like, I'm not one thing, but I'm a creative person. I'm a child of God. I am someone who's very curious, and I would say I'm ever expanding. So whenever I find I'm like leaning too much into one identity, I try to question that a little bit.
I love the fact that the space that you fill is like uniquely millennial, Gen Z, and beyond, because of the fact that like we remember there was a time where these jobs didn't exist.
Yeah.
But now they provide such a pathway for a lot of people, and the jobs I'm talking about obviously are creator jobs. Anything that has to do with this like creative digital industry. So for you, how did you get into this? Because you said you were a comms major.
Mm-hmm. So majored in comms at Vanderbilt, minored in German and film, like the most random minors. But in high school, my best friend's mom was the German teacher. And so I was like, I want to be a little different. And I think what I realized was I was going to have to work for a really long time. And so I wanted to work in an industry that I found exciting. And for me, it was television and it was storytelling. And so as soon as I could come to New York, I was here. And I started at NBC in the Page program. And what I loved about the Page program is it's like dating kind of different departments. And I got lucky because my first kind of rotation was at Bravo. The rest was history. I was there for 10 years. And I've always been kind of a creative person, but I think working in PR, it's a mixture of like storytelling and planning. And I mean, we're super creative. So we're writing all the press releases, all the bios, and that job changed my life. I was in the center of everything.
Yeah. Tell me about your time there. First off, it is kind of different that you, especially as a millennial, were there for that long. You've said a third of your life. You were promoted multiple times. What did you find was your strength? What were the things that you found challenging?
So when I first got to Bravo, I thought this is going to be so easy because I love Bravo. I had no idea the learning curve. And so when I first got there, I was so behind the other coordinators. There were 5 coordinators and we all split responsibilities. And I remember my first day, we're all doing clippings of different press. And these girls are cranking out like 10 articles that they're finding on the internet by the time it takes me to do one. And I remember going home to my apartment and telling my parents, I am not qualified for this. And they were like, no, you are. It's your first day. And so for the first 3 months at my job, I had to come in 2 hours early to just be able to catch up with the other girls. And I think what I realized was you could be a super big fish in in a small pond with my internships, but like every level is going to require a different version of you. And so it was very humbling. But after a while, I was able to come in with the other girls. And so I started as a coordinator, left as a vice president. And I think at every single level, I would look at the person who was like above me in title. And I wouldn't compare us from like a jealousy standpoint, but I would look at that gap and say, oh, wow, they've got incredible like executive presence, or like, oh, wow, they are able to show their work. And I would reverse engineer getting better at that. And so I always tell people like, copy and paste that. That's how you grow. The other thing was I had a really great boss. So I think so much of like wanting to stay at a place is wanting mentorship and wanting advice. And my boss, Jen Geyser, started as her assistant, left as her vice president, but she changed my life. She was honest with me. When I first got there, I used to like skip around. I was just so happy. And I'll never forget, she called me into her office and she was like, shut the door. I was like, oh.
That's never good.
Not we're shutting the door. And she was like, you've got to stop skipping around these halls.
Were
like,
you actually?
No, y'all. I was so happy to be there. I would come and I would be like, good morning, Jen. And she'd be like, please stop singing my name. But like, you need like that radical candor, someone that's going to pull you to the side and be like, baby girl.
Oh,
They would tell you in New York too, like, if you don't stop skipping.
But I actually want to sit there for a second, because one thing that I found really refreshing from you, and that's hard to find, is you're receptive to criticism. Like some people, I know I can struggle with criticism, even if it's like gentle. The more gentle it is, the more I'm like, damn, they hate me.
Right. Damn.
So to be able to receive that, not take it personally or as an attack, I think is a superpower.
Yeah, it'll change your life.
Yeah. How did you react to that? And how do you find the way you receive criticism has been helpful for you?
I mean, I was embarrassed, because I think sometimes how you want to display and the way it's received, there can be kind of a disconnect there. And so for her to be able to be like, you got to stop doing that. At first I was like, oh, okay, I'm embarrassed. But then once I moved past embarrassment, I was like, thank you. Because if you're an EVP and you did this, the door was shut, this wasn't at a big meeting, no one else knows right now, it's kind of a safe space. There's other executives who are probably thinking that. Like we were on the same floor as the president. Andy Cohen's walking around. I'm literally skipping. And I wish I was like, that's a metaphor for how happy I was. No, I was literally skipping.
How would you advise someone who wants to differentiate between somebody dimming their light and somebody really giving them constructive criticism because they're looking out for them?
So I think you have to examine the source, because her general demeanor was kind, constructive, helpful, and she was someone I wanted to be like her, right? So she was in a position where I was seeing her navigating rooms. She was the executive vice president. And so I was able to examine the source and say, okay, I respect you. You're really good at your job. You're kind, and kind doesn't mean it'll never be, critical feedback. And it also helped me to be a better executive, so it worked. I think when it comes to dimming your light, one, the body knows the difference. So I think, I felt a moment of embarrassment and then I was grateful. I think that feels different than, this feels like you're trying to hurt me. This feels like you're trying to embarrass me. And that context was important, right? So if someone's doing this in front of everyone, right? Or let's say we had this conversation, then 2 days later, she's bringing it up in front of a group, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm kind of like, what are the motives there? And I met a lot of those kind of personalities, and my body would know the difference in terms of like, oh, you're trying to help me, or, oh no, you're trying to shame me.
That's so key, because in this day and age where everybody feels like they got 1,000 haters, you've got to be able to discern what's actual real feedback and what might be jealousy. But it could be a little bit of a blessing there to course correct and look at you now, right? I mean, I guess you don't want to be skipping around your...
Listen, sometimes I still skip.
Every now and then.
I skip with authority.
I still skip with authority. But she was that way. I mean, right before I became a vice president, she was like, let's work on your executive presence. And again, I was a director. So at that point, again, you're a little embarrassed, like, I don't have executive presence. But it's like, when you're operating at that level, you think about a Michael Jordan, you think about a LeBron James, they have coaches. And so they're not even above, feedback. And so I kind of think, I was an athlete, I ran track, and I think that's where my relationship with feedback comes, was I had a coach that I could trust.
Yeah.
And he would say, lift your legs 2 more inches, you're going to be so much faster over those hurdles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you were also a ballerina for over a decade.
I did ballet for 14 years.
Yeah. Mona and I were talking about this because her husband also was a D1 athlete. My husband played basketball, and how they're able to take criticism. They know who they are. They can identify what they need to work on and kind of just let the rest roll off their back. And it helps you so much in life to have played sports.
Yes. You can go so much faster if you're able to learn from other people's mistakes instead of having to like carry it all your own. So I'm like, wait, how can I get here faster? I mean, I was there for a third of my life. I was there for 10 years. And the reason I was able to move so quickly was I was always optimizing in terms of if I could just tweak this, you know, and then I was also being myself. I think I also realized a lot of the things I thought were disadvantages, being quieter, observing first, those were huge advantages in the end. Yeah.
So when do you realize, after you've been here, you've learned so much, you've grown and changed positions and changed titles, when do you realize that you want to pivot and do something else?
It was so hard for me because I didn't want to leave. Like, my goal was to be an executive for the rest of my life. I wanted a corner office. I wanted to leave at 6 p.m. And Creative Collective was growing while I was, you know, building my job at NBC. And so it got to the point where I was doing Creative Collective on the weekends. Creative Collective has now grown to be the largest community for Black and Brown creatives, providing resources and accessibility for them. But it started in my living room. And so it was 10 people that I invited over. And the whole goal was that I felt pretty isolated in terms of community. I knew where the best day parties were, but you're not doing a lot of yapping at day parties. And so I was like, where is there a space where you can ask about how do you get a promotion? What's executive presence? How do you start an LLC? And so I invited 10 friends over. I made tacos for them. And the only rule was that you had to bring someone you could vouch for. So then it was 20 people. Then it was 40 people. And I honestly had my eyes on my corporate role. This was something I was doing for just pure community and fun. And it kept growing. And so there was a time where I was doing NBC from 8 a.m. to probably 10 p.m. because I was doing Watch What Happens Live. So sometimes even midnight. And then I would come home, take a power break, eat some empanada mama, my favorite. And then I would work on Creative Collective for like 2 hours.
Ma'am, it's like 2 a.m.
It's 2 a.m. I would work on Creative Collective for like 2 hours. Then I would get another power break and then I would do it again. And then on the weekends, all Creative Collective. And I was operating at a level of like almost obsession. And then it got so big that I realized that I had to leave my dream job for my next dream job. So that was in 2023.
And I think you had mentioned BravoCon was like 1 week and then CultureCon.
Yes.
You are insane.
It was
something's getting canceled.
Yes.
Me, I'm having a breakdown.
You guys, like, and that was kind of, I think that was the moment that I said, oh, like, it's time, because they had announced the BravoCon dates and I was really working a lot to spearhead the press for BravoCon.
Yeah.
And CultureCon was the week after. And BravoCon is 25,000 people and CultureCon is 10,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. There comes a point where your jobs tell you you have to choose. And you try to juggle it as much as you can. And I think that's important, obviously, with pivoting, because it's like you want to know when the right time is. And sometimes you try to do as much as you can until you realize you can't do both.
Yes.
Yeah.
The rubber band breaks. And my dad always says from something to something. And so he's always like, it's not really a pivot. It's always unfolding inside of you, because so much of what I learned at NBC equipped me to be a founder. And working in crisis and working where everything's a fire drill, I think I learned what things aren't fire drills. So sometimes my team will be like, Mayday, Mayday. And I'm like, no.
Chill.
Do
It's
next
good.
week.
Yeah.
Go home.
It's almost like it's not ER, it's PR. Like it's never that serious.
It's never that serious.
You know, I like to say, Mona and I basically pivoted from our traditional news roles as anchors and reporters. But I like to say that the pivot doesn't start when you're actually moving from one job to the next. It's when you, in your mind, quietly say, I'm deciding I need to leave this thing. And then the rest is just logistics.
Wow.
So what was it for you where was it in that moment mentally? And then what were the logistics and how long did that take after?
So I would say for me, I heard the whisper about a year before I left.
Okay.
But I did not listen to it because I did not want to listen to it. So I heard the whisper that was saying, CultureCon is growing. You need to give it full-time attention. And I remember talking to my dad and he was like, well, have you saved? And I was like, yeah, like I'm a saver. And he was like, you'll just know. You'll go from something to something. And I think when the news came about BravoCon and CultureCon and the irony of them being a week apart, I think two things. One, I knew I had to execute both of them, but I knew it wasn't going to be sustainable to do that every single year. And so in terms of logistics, like, you know, CultureCon was one of those things that, you know, started with 100 people and then 500 and then 2,000 and then 10,000. And so the leaps were like quantum leaps. Yeah. And I think that's why it kind of caught me off guard, was it wasn't like, oh, 100 to 300, but I was really scared. I think for me, again, it was the only corporate job I'd ever had. And so much of how I had learned to navigate my life was through the lens of it. And my mom said, I mean, she said, will you regret if you don't try it?
Oof, yeah.
And when I thought about it like that, it became easier to decide. The other thing was I loved the people I worked with. So
yeah,
there were no burning of bridges. I got to be on Watch What Happens Live.
I want to talk about that because that's so key. I think a lot of people think you pivot when you hate your job. It can be your dream job.
My dream job. And that's how I knew it was my dream job. It was so hard to leave. You know, and I think that is such a blessing to be like, I love you so much. That's why I have to go. Because I would stay here forever. Yeah, I really would.
I do want to talk a little bit about this obsession you were talking about, because I think sometimes people underestimate how much passion and devotion it takes to do something, and sacrifice as well. So, I mean, with how many hours you were spending, for you, what was it that you were putting on the back burner?
So many relationships, I think. And there were times where I was completely like disassociated from like things that were very important. And I think right now, that's why I'm so hyper-focused on having more balance. But I think it wouldn't be truthful to say that in the beginning, things were sacrificed. So there were day parties and birthday parties and bridal showers. And so I would say, I'll be at the wedding. I can't fly to Austin for the bridal shower. But like, you know, here's the gift card and I love you. But when I think back to those days, I mean, I think back to the energy that even required. Like, I don't even know how I was operating at that level. I think there has to be a form of like obsession. And then you also have to figure out your zone of genius, because then I started working with all my friends. So my friends were able to come in and help with that workload, which was really great. And I kind of think back to Imani, who was like burning the midnight oil. My catalyst for starting Creative Collective was also a lot of anger. And anger is a great catalyst. It won't sustain you.
Yeah.
But I went to a conference and the panel was about hip hop and culture. And there was no diversity on the conference. This was in 2017. And I was so like annoyed by that I was like, yeah,
that's a decision.
Like that, you know, like that. Y'all did a lot with that one.
You wanted Black people to discuss hip hop,
and
it's not always necessary.
Like, y'all see this? So I think it started with this like injustice that I felt in terms of a visibility point of view, and then it parlayed to a more communal feeling. But I was pissed off. Yeah, absolutely.
Jeannette loves that.
Yeah. She was like, I say, and not that they're necessarily good, but anger and fear are incredible motivators until they're not.
Until they're not. Until they're
So
not.
then you're like, have a crisis and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not pissed or what is it? Angry anymore.
Right.
Or what's the other one? Pissed and afraid anymore, right? Yeah. So I wonder, when you're deciding to pivot, then you have your supporters, and then there are people that are like, are you crazy?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, you're working, you've got this dream job, you've worked up, you've been there for 10 years. What was the reaction from the people who didn't necessarily support your decision?
It's interesting because I didn't really, by the time, so I'm someone who once I decide, I don't need you to tell me what you decide. Like, and so once I had the people in my life who I really, again, context, because people will sometimes project their fears on you. And I remember I saw Elaine Welteroth at the last BravoCon, and I said, Elaine, I'm scared to death. And she was like, why? And I was like, well, I think I'm going to do CultureCon full time. And she was like, yeah, great. Of course you should. Yeah, why not? And I'm like, Elaine, I'm quitting my corporate job to be an entrepreneur. And she was like, Imani, CultureCon is huge. It's going to be fine. And there was something about her confidence that she was looking at me like, what's the problem? This is great. That really transferred to me. And I think the other piece that really helped me, you know, be brave was kind of like what my mom had said about the regret. I'm very hireable. Like, I knew that like I had a unique set of skills and I could find a job, and I would go work in a donut shop if I needed to. But I was like, let me just try. I have some savings. The worst is that it doesn't work. Then I'll go work somewhere else. And there were people that were like, you're leaving your corporate job? But to be honest with you, I legit was like, my options are stay here forever or go for my dream. And it just kind of felt like once I had decided, I was just then informing people versus, what do you think I should do? Because sometimes you will get so stuck, you know, just in that echo chamber. What is the quote? It's like, the best way to do nothing is to ask everybody what to do.
Yeah, that's so good.
Stealing that one.
The point about Elaine Welteroth is really powerful because I think the opposite is true too. Like, I think confidence is contagious, but so is doubt. And being really protective about a decision that you've made and not talking to the wrong people.
Yes.
Who will suddenly make you question, well, maybe I am crazy to leave my, let me sit my behind down and collect this check. But Mona and I had a similar conversation when you were leaving ABC. She left, like, did you leave your job a few months before? Months before me.
It was a few months before, and she, like, it was a phone conversation we had, and she said something that was like really profound, because I was like, I could just sign this other contract. It's like 2-3 years. And she was just like, imagine, I'm going to paraphrase, so correct me because it's been a while, but it was just like, in those 2 years, imagine what you could do.
Wow.
Instead of deferring it. But then 2 years later, she's like, what you don't want is 2 years later, or it wasn't even 2, it was probably 3.
Yeah.
3 years later to then be starting and then take the chance when you could have been building for those 3 years.
Yes.
And thank you very much, because it's been like
And now
almost
she's
2
killing it.
years.
Yes.
Thank you. And I've been able to do so much, and it hasn't even been fully 2 years yet. So I always think about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
because,
important.
you know, you want to obviously look down and say, like, you know, what are my expenses? What's the runway that I have? Like, I never tell people to jump out of the window and quit their job, because money stress is a different kind of stress.
Yeah, you're not Beyonce. Do not release your job.
Do not release it. Like, you need a runway so that you're not making decisions out of desperation. Like, you're making them from a place of like, this is what I actually want to do. And, you know, the truth is that like it worked out for us. And sometimes people try things and it doesn't. You still learn and you still pivot. But I'm so glad I made that jump.
I do want to talk to you, though, about some of the difficulties, because I know that somebody listening is like, oh, great, it worked out. And then there was like cotton candy and butterflies at the end of it. But this is a huge task, an undertaking. So tell me in the beginning if there were some moments, like whether you had to put on your big girl pants and really put your foot down, or just things kept going wrong.
Oh my gosh. I remember when we were first pitching CultureCon, everyone just kept saying no. And it just...
Sponsors are
Sponsors,
okay.
yes. So sponsors, you know, we did the first one and it was all about community. Like, I didn't even know what a sponsor was, the first CultureCon. It was me and my friends texting in the group chat and putting together just some conversations. And then after that, a brand came up to us. I think it was HBO was our first brand, and was like, can we sponsor this? And I remember being like, what does that mean? You know? And so we were learning as we were going. And so we had HBO. It was so exciting. And so we were taking our pitch deck out to the market, and people just didn't understand it. Like, this was in 2018. So still before the pandemic. This is 2018. HBO understood it. They were super early adopters, but a lot of people just did not understand it. And so at the time, it's a sales team of one, me. And so I would remember I would maybe do, goodness, like 10 pitches a week, and 9 people would say no. And one person would say, yeah, maybe next year, right? And so it would just be so discouraging. And I remember pushing through that and saying, you just need one yes. You just need one yes. I thought of it almost like a house or a husband. Yeah. I just needed one. Yeah. And so I remember kind of being so discouraged because after a few no's from these kind of high time executives, you almost start doubting if it really makes sense. And every time I would think it was the end, there'd be, I call it like a God nod, where there would be this moment where someone would say yes. And so I remember then fast forward to 2019, having 25 sponsors. But had you told me in 2018, I never would have believed you. And so I think a lot of it is, you know, we talk a lot about creating like physical structure, like LLCs and teams, but like the hardest part is the mental fortitude. It's like you've got to figure out what movie you need to watch, who you need to talk to, what scripture that's going to like keep you going. So for me, the two movies that I watch when I'm like need inspiration, one is Whiplash. You guys seen Whiplash?
No.
Oh, it's all about obsession and like mastery of your like art. Whiplash. And then the other is Remember the Titans.
Oh, yeah. That'll do it.
That'll do it. And so you've got to figure out what is that for you.
What's the scripture?
Oh my gosh, the scripture, oh my goodness, is no one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And so whenever I felt forsaken and left, I would remember that and I would say, and I love just as I was with Moses, I'll be with you.
Like I've been doing this.
Like I'm here. I'm here. You think this is so specific to you. And it's like people have had problems. And so it like connects me, I think, to someone else.
You mentioned mentorship. Talk about mentorship because I feel like people underestimate the power of having a mentor and just reinvent the wheel for no reason when you can just follow someone who's done it before.
Oh,
Stop yelling at me.
Stop yelling at me. I'm working on it.
My mentors have they've saved me. And I believe in diversity of mentors. So I have all types of mentors. And I would say I've never asked someone to be my mentor. They usually like find me. And so that's my number one piece of advice is like mentors usually find you already doing the thing. And they're impressed by you. They see something in you. And I think for me, the number one way I've gotten mentors is being curious. And like, I think a lot of people are just way too transactional. They're like, what can my mentor do for me? What room can they bring me in? But you really should, I hate the phrase pick your brain, but you really should look at them almost as a professor in terms of like, we talked earlier about Andy and being such a great interviewer. Like if you could be in front of a CMO, why would you waste that opportunity asking about where they were born? Like you should ask like, how do you manage a team of 10 type A personalities? What is their like reporting structure to you? Like how do you get all of that information and aggregate it in your mind? So I would ask those kind of questions. And I think the mentors were like, oh. And so I probably right now have maybe like 8 to 10 different mentors for kind of like different topics. And I don't know. I think the other piece about it is also recognizing, again, even with the context, like mentors can only really give you their perspective. There also comes a time where you're like, I'm gonna do it this way. Because I had a mentor that told me, love her, but she told me I had made a huge mistake by booking Brooklyn Navy Yard. She was like, oh, Imani, this is too big. Because we had been at the Knockdown Center before. I called her and said, we booked the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And she was like, I think you made a big mistake.
How big are we talking?
Oh my gosh. So we went from the Knockdown Center holds 350 people. Brooklyn Navy Yard that year did 5,000 people. Oof. And I didn't go with anyone from production. I just liked how it looked. And it turned out to be an amazing success. But I had already signed the contract. And so there was no like moonwalking it back. And I had never gone this big. So my default was that she was right. But what I didn't think of is like, she was giving me the best she could with what she knew.
Yeah.
But we sold out that year. And if I had kind of, gone to her first, I would have never scaled. And so feedback is I definitely should have done more diligence, but it worked out. And I mean, I think that was a moment where I kind of was like, you also know sometimes what's best for your business. But if you don't, collect all that data and then see what rises to the top.
For context, that's where they held the Victoria's Secret fashion show.
Yes.
Yeah.
A week later, Tyla looked
wow.
gorgeous.
Yes.
And one of the pictures that she took, there's a CultureCon patch at the Victoria's Secret.
Yes,
fashion show.
advertising.
I love that.
So with CultureCon, what kind of stories have you heard? What, like the people that are attending? Because this job market, this economy
Yeah.
is rough on the creator, but it's also, I feel like in uncertain times, that's when we see the most opportunity. So what kind of like people are coming up to you and stories are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I love the most about CultureCon is we're disrupting swim lanes. So you have people that are working in corporate and they're like entrepreneurs, so they're doing things inside corporate. And then you have entrepreneurs and creators and artists, and we want to bring them together. And so we've had everything from the first CultureCon baby that was born last year to people that met at CultureCon to,
Because if you're single,
well,
I mean, listen, those are your people. If
There are
you
a lot
want to
of
be
people.
there.
they're there. That's where you need to be. But also I think more like collaborative stories in terms of people who are working on a film and found a director, or someone who is a brilliant creative and needs a CPA or an accountant. And so I really do believe like you've got to find folks. In the beginning, you're doing everything. But as you start to like optimize, there's ways of like bartering, right? Like I think back to when I had no budget, I was working with my friends through bartering. I would say, I will draft a press release for you. Can you donate some water for me? And those were the exchanges, right? Because my goal was like, even if we don't make money, let's just not lose money. And so a lot of that bartering happens at CultureCon. And I think how you were saying energy is contagious. There's something about knowing that other people are kind of experiencing some of those roadblocks, and that some people have the answers and they can give them to you.
Yeah.
So it's something special. And I think my favorite thing is just to like walk on the campus. And we had people that came in from Germany last year, Puerto Rico last year.
insane.
It's such an honor, I think, to work with our team and our community to kind of bring this to life every year.
What was your, like, sit back, you see it with like singers in their concerts or whatever, where they're just looking at the stadium like, I made it. Like, this is the moment. What was yours?
Can I tell you all a confession? Up until last year, I do this thing where the doors to CultureCon will open and I will look at my parents, they come every year, and I will say, no one's coming. I know.
I was not expecting.
I know. And they're like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, they're not coming. They all changed their mind. They're not coming. There's a little bit of that that's still inside of me. But I think I have finally gotten to the point where last year I interviewed my parents on stage. And that was such a full circle moment because they have been kind of, if not the biggest inspiration to me, pushing me when I did not see myself. And so there were so many times I was like, I can't do this. It's too hard. There's too many moving pieces.
Yeah.
And so I think sitting on stage with them and interviewing them about their life and their marriage was like such a full circle moment. I think that was one of my favorite
I'd
moments.
be a mess crying. Useless.
You just start. My parents. I'm not that strong. But you talked about so many moving parts, and just putting this podcast together, we realized I like to be able to control myself and be able to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
I also hate delegating, but I know it's necessary. It is necessary. So how are you with delegating, and what did you realize with just putting on an event so big?
Now, why do you hate delegating?
Because I'm a control freak and I want to do, or I think I could just, it's easier if I do it myself, because by the time I'm like explaining it to you, I'm like, you know what? And then God forbid you do it wrong. And now I got to do it. Yeah.
I mean,
That's real though.
yeah. I'm like, you are me. I am you.
Hey, twin.
Hey, twin. I'm like, where you been? I I was holding on until I was forced to let go. So I call it like the rubber band effect. It's like you try until the rubber band breaks, and then you've got to figure out a different way. What was breaking was like my mental health, because yes, you can do it all until a certain level of scale. And then what starts to happen is things fall through the cracks. And so I had a really great piece of advice that was like, if it's 80% done, that's good enough. And I was like, no, 100%, everything must be 100%. And I've been able to slowly relinquish control and understand, I got this from Morgan DeBon, which of these are CEO tasks, only I can do it. And which of these can I delegate? And if you really write it down, there's really certain things that other people can do it. Like your assistant can schedule the meeting and put it on your calendar. It doesn't have to be you. And for the longest time, I was like, no, because only I can do it. And I was like, no. And so for me, delegating has been about really getting people to buy into the mission and why it matters, and then setting up enough checkpoints that I still have visibility. So my team knows, like, I don't need to be a part of like the first draft of creative, but like I want to see the creative before it goes to print. And so I have incredible teams that set up systems that I'm not, in the dark on things. I don't do very well in the dark. So even if it's an update, I love an update. Nabila on my team created this thing called the marathon email, and it is my saving grace. So every Friday, all my direct reports send me marathons, everything that I need to know going into the next week.
I love that.
And it is so comforting just to see everything on place. And so I'm getting it from marketing, finance, sales, partnerships, and I drink my morning coffee on Saturday, look at my marathon email, and it allows me to not micromanage or like,
but still be informed.
Yeah. So you've got to figure out what are your systems that can help you feel informed, but like also like not in the weeds.
And it also, you don't, because when you're doing everything, then you're mad that you're doing everything, but you chose to do everything, then it just builds resentment.
Yeah.
And you're like, ma'am, you chose this.
You did this.
Nobody
did this
wants
to
to help around here.
Right. But you and I have something in common, by the way. You've mentioned coaching and like life coach, Myleik Teal.
Oh, Myleik.
I know she told you about yourself. She told me about myself. When I told you, I closed the laptop and I sat there. And I'm like, was I just checked? I think I was, and I paid for it. But it was life-changing because I needed to hear it. So what was your moment where it's like, I just got checked?
Ooh, I love Myleik and her background in PR and just like who she is. I was saying so many things. Like I would say, like, only I can do that. And she would literally say, is that true? And so she took these kind of like cornerstone beliefs that I had and just dismantled them. And that crumbled everything else because, wait, that's my core belief. And I loved being challenged by her. And I also think one of the things we talked about, I'm the eldest daughter. And I think, again, you create this cycle where you set up a system, you didn't ask for help, you're upset because you don't have help, and you're just perpetuating kind of the stress. And so she would say, how can we get out of this pattern? Another thing for me is I future cast all the time. I'm always thinking about the future, and I'm always thinking about, oh yeah, I'll just rest in the future, or I'll just balance it in the future. And she would always pull me back to the present and say, okay, but how can we make one adjustment like today? And so that also really helped me because I think sometimes the fantasy is like always around the corner or like next weekend you'll rest. And I realize that's kind of the rest of my life if I don't ever like make it more present. And so now it's kind of like, I have a weekend, I'm going to enjoy this weekend versus like pushing it off and like working through the weekend to try to get ahead.
So with your personal life, do you feel like now you're more intentional?
I would say I'm more intentional now than maybe I've been in a really long time. And a lot of that has to do with just like recognizing that like if you never stop it or you never change anything, nothing changes. And again, these are phrases I feel like we've all heard, but like you really start to see that the world is moving so quickly and people are like, wait, how is it June? And then you just do that for the next 10 years. And so I do school night dates now. So twice a week, I will either get dinner or drinks or a date with a friend. And then now the weekends are either, you know, just for me, or I'll do one thing on the weekend. But I used to be in a very like only the weekends are for social time and the weekdays are school nights. And now I'm like, girl, you are grown. If you don't go to dinner on a Tuesday night. And then the other thing is now when I think of a friend, I call them. I don't do as many like scheduled calls. And sometimes they answer and sometimes they call me back. But like sometimes I feel like by the time you scheduled it, it's like 2 months away.
I
what are we doing?
We have lost a little bit of our spontaneity in friendships. I know this is so terrible. There are some friends, we're close friends. If you call me, I'm thinking, what's wrong?
Yes.
Or like, why are you calling me? Or like this weekend, I had the day wide open. My mom was like, why don't you call so-and-so and just meet up with her? And I'm like, because we didn't schedule it. Like, we didn't decide 2-3 days ago to meet up today. But like that spontaneity, I think, is so helpful when you're caught up in your career and building something. You think everything has to be on the calendar and scheduled days in advance. How's your work-life balance when it comes to that? Because you're still building. I'm sure you have this big vision. How do you think it exists?
I would say it exists, but not in the way where it's kind of like so structured. I really listen to my body more than I ever have before. And so I burnt out so bad. What year was that? 2022. Burnt out so bad I had to go into my own creative residency where I curated just like time away. And now that I've returned from that, I've learned how to trust my body. So I will literally be working and my body will say, I think we're done. And I'll say, oh, we're done. There was a time where I would ignore that. I really learned how to ignore my body. I think through ballet and through being an athlete, we were always told you don't stop when the job is hard. You stop when the job is done.
Ooh, yeah.
And that works for a certain season of your life. But for this season of my life, I'm kind of like, we're in CultureCon season, but it's not sprinting yet. It's kind of like marathon jogging season. So I have the luxury of like, okay, we'll end earlier today. We'll start earlier tomorrow. When it's like September, I have a sign on my computer that says, every second counts, every day is a month. And what that means is I've got to look at that day as like every second of this day is going to count. And you can get as much done in this day as you would have gotten done in a month in a slower season. But we're in a fast season now. So maybe in a slower season, if I had maybe 5 calls to make in a slower season, I could make those 5 calls across a week. When it's sprinting season, those 5 calls need to happen in a day. And so I'm literally compressing my time. Yeah. But it's got to be seasonal because that's not sustainable either. So I think that's my balance is like slow seasons and like fast seasons versus like every day is like a different kind of like balancing act.
I think I remember you do like these 30 days. It's like this extended time off. I don't know if it's after or before CultureCon.
So now I do them. Yes. Okay. So I kind of have been playing with it. I think 30 days is too long for me. But my first one was 30 days.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is too long. And so now my creative residencies are a week. And that is the perfect amount of time for me to reset. And you're exactly right. I do one now before CultureCon because you don't want to be the person showing up at the event so exhausted that like you're not even there. I've done that before. And so now I do creative residency before CultureCon, and that's to prepare for the conference. And then I do one after CultureCon, and that's to prepare for the next like probably like 2 to 3 years.
What does it look like? Are you just watching Netflix? Are you going to the spa?
Yes. So I structured it. So the first part is all about play. And so it's like 2 to 3 days of just saying yes to my inner child. And I will have ice cream for breakfast. I bought a toy car from Walmart, and I'll drive it around my house, or I'll go to a museum. I will just say yes. And I don't think we think about how often we tell ourselves no. But what if you just said yes and gave your inner child some of that freedom? I'll color. It's like so childish. Yeah. And then the second part of my creative residency is still. So I'll get off social media. I'll read a lot. I'll reflect. And so kind of any like reminiscent thoughts or things I haven't really thought about because I haven't had time, I'll just think about them. I'll let myself get bored without like reaching for a phone. It's really hard.
That is revolutionary.
Yeah.
Getting bored, what is that
I will
days?
get so bored. And if I feel bored, I'll go out in nature. And then the third part of my creative residency is reflection and execution. So I'll think about what ideas came out of play. So many culture. The theme for camp and this like creative playground came out of creative residency. Because I was like, we don't really play anymore as adults. Like we don't get to color. We don't do arts and crafts.
So true.
And so we had an arts and crafts table. It was our most popular activation at CultureCon. And so I think a lot of times, you know, we've heard this, like you don't have to earn rest, but I think rest always feels, again, like around the corner.
Yeah.
And now I inject it into my life. And so my creative residency, I've got to figure out, the last one I went to Grenada. So I've got to figure out where I'm going to go this year. I don't know.
I love
that.
But I also know that it's, especially if it's right before CultureCon and you are grinding, you're in those, the every day is a month kind of moment.
Yes.
I would be on vacation, shoulders to my ears, just like trying to relax, but I can't because I'm so wired. So how do you decompress? Like, do you take the first 3 days the hardest because, you know, you're coming off this busy season?
Mm-hmm. I would say before or after CultureCon.
Before, because you know what's coming.
So there becomes a time, and I love it, where I let go. The worst is right before that, because then I feel like I can actually make a difference. And so that's the worst, because you're just like, again, every day is a month.
Yeah.
That's the worst. But then I get into that 2-week window where I legit say, it is above me now. And my team they'll be like, it's a let go time. And I'll be like, not yet, not yet. We still have work to do. But when we get into that let go window, it's like, we have prepared for this. We're going to do our best. We're going to pray over this. But like, I legit have learned to let it go. And I have incredible project managers, incredible leads. I trust them. We have templates for everything. And they know if it's a level 5 fire, call me. I mean, that's kind of our, landline. But other than that, I'm like, I'm going to let it go. Because I think, I have done the version where you go on a trip and your mind is still in New York.
Yeah.
I'm like, what a shame, right? Like, and so I think the other piece is giving yourself self-compassion, learn that from my leak, and then sometimes lowering the stakes a little bit. Like, again, the not ER, it's PR. I think I was wired that everything was like fatal. And when I kind of like let go of that grip, it was like, Imani, is the font a size 12 or 14? We're going to be okay. When you really say it out loud, you're like, we're okay.
I do want to know, because looking from the outside in, I know when I see you on social media and CultureCon, I'm like, this looks like it's smooth, like it's second nature. Like she might snap her fingers and things fall into place like Mary Poppins.
Really?
So what is the mess? When was something so bad that you were just like, it's a fire and I don't have an extinguisher. There's nothing I can do. And you really screwed up.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many messes. I mean, I cry all the time. Like I don't film it, but I cry all the time. I actually put out this compilation of CEO diaries. So every 2 weeks, I will talk to myself in the future. And it helps me so much because I'm like, this moment will not last for always. So I have over like 75 videos to myself.
I love that.
You all should just give yourself a calendar invite. And I say, hi, Imani. It's Imani. And I will tell myself what I'm going through. And you will look back at that and say, oh my gosh, you thought it was over. My goodness. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, one time we had a brand that wanted to build a 2-story activation. That's great. The floor was uneven and they'd already committed. And so we were able to bring in someone to level the floor and it works out. So that's the thing. It does work out because we have experts on the team. But in the middle, you don't know how it's going to end. So I think that's the part of like, sometimes I literally say, that's it for the day. Like, that's it. And I will come with a fresh look tomorrow. But as a founder, I mean, we're just solving so many problems. And I think what you have to get to is a point where it's like, with the information I have, I'm making the best decision that I have. I'm going to bring in everyone that I know. But we've had everything from talent who had to cancel the night before, but we already promoted them, to leveling the floor of, a building, to, I mean, goodness, like people missing their flights.
Was there anything that you did wrong? And the reason I ask is because I think a lot of people, when you, in a world of highlight reels, when you screw up, it's easy to take it as an indication, like, maybe this isn't for me. Like, maybe this ain't my ministry. Was there ever a time where you just genuinely dropped the ball?
Oh my gosh, all of the time. Like even last week, I was moving so quickly. We have some folks who are supposed to be starting today. I, in my mind, had the 16th, and that's small, right? But like, that's what I mean with self-compassion is I literally say, I made a mistake. Can we fix it? Can we move it? I think signing on that venue without having anyone there to vet it was a huge mistake. I mean, the stakes were so large. We're signing these contracts that it's the size of 5 football fields. And so had we not had the sponsors to fill out that building, it would have been me paying to fill out the building and paying for the building. And then I think also, when you're building a team, you're experimenting with the structures, right? And so a lot of times when you're restructuring, everyone's expecting that like you have it all figured out. But sometimes you're like, this is more confusing than it was before. All right, we're going back to the beginning. And so making sure that you're keeping the confidence of your team while also sharing that like, I'm human, I think is a delicate dance because we're working with a lot of creatives, and creatives need really clear guidelines so that they can have fun in the middle. And so sometimes if it's too many reports or too many meetings or people are just burnt out because the world is the world, it can feel very much like, is this culture good? Am I a good leader? Am I oversharing? Am I, and I think for me, again, that's why my league is incredible. She's really allowed me to incorporate self-compassion. I think, there are so many challenges that you don't know until you know. Like right now we have a finance director, but in the beginning we were just using, I think, like QuickBooks, right? So like taxes come and you're like, I don't know.
That's so real.
I don't know. Like, here's a receipt. It's like I have a receipt in a PDF and I don't know. And like there was a time where I think I got it wrong and, I had to pay $2,000. There's all these little things. And to your point, you can make it feel indicative of, I'm not a leader. I'm not built for this. And I think it's like, you didn't know what you didn't know. And now you know.
And it's what you do with that.
And it's what you do with it. But
that's powerful.
So I did want to ask you, because you said that you have a very nice, joyful personality, and at least that's what I get from you. And particularly with like the skipping story, I feel like sometimes people could think you're very unassuming and try to take advantage of that. Have there been moments where you really do have to shut things down or to assert yourself? Because I mean, in women in general, I feel like some people kind of just brush them aside or they don't see them in that powerful role. But as a CEO, how do you do that?
I love that. I mean, I've been underestimated my entire life, and it's been an incredible superpower. People never are thinking of me, looking at me until they have to. And by then, we've already built the thing. It's too late. And so I used to take that very personally. I remember when I was doing ballet, I was the first Black woman to play Clara, the main character, in 75 years in Atlanta Ballet. And I remember one of the ballet moms, I came down with my piece of paper and she said, "You?" And that version of me stayed with me for a while, was just being underestimated and having to like overcompensate and prove. And I say that because I am a kind person. I am a generous person, but I'm not a pushover. And so when it does become time to kind of put my foot down, I think people are very surprised because they're like, is this the same Imani? For anyone who needs to kind of like flex that, you should watch Succession.
Ooh.
Succession is what I need to watch when I need to be like forthright. And what I've also found is that people respect that like straightforwardness. Like I think sometimes I thought like skipping around it made it better. But now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, hey, this isn't working, or this is overdue. Or is everything okay? Like, and I think people are surprised. Like I will call coordinators on my team and I'll say, what's going on? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, where are you? You're not showing up. You're missing deadlines. And they're like, you noticed that? Like I will go straight to the source. And I think that comes from being a publicist, is like, we would just call the reporters and just tell them. I mean, you all know all about, you know, that relationship, but it's a dance, you know, but I just try to meet people where they are. And I try to be compassionate.
I know we got to wrap here in a little bit, but I'm thinking of creatives or people who are in the thick of it, where you're doubting yourself. You might be on the precipice, though, of something big. What do you tell that person to encourage them?
For me, I'm a very kind of visually inspired person. And so I love quotes. And I like to think about, James Baldwin says, like, you think you're the only person who's experienced something, and then you read.
I have that framed.
You know, I like to think of myself as part of a much bigger story. And so when I think about the Martin Luther Kings, when I think about the Harriet Tubmans, when I think about Frederick Douglass, when I think about everyone who's come before me and all of their obstacles, I like to think of myself as part of that mosaic. And it makes it, one, way less personal, which I think makes it easier to ask for help, because it's not like I'm a bad leader. It's like I'm a humaning. And then again, sometimes you really have to figure out, what is it for me that inspires me? Like, what do I need to watch? What do I need to listen to? Who do I need to talk to? Who can like remind me who I am? That's my parents. I promise you guys, there have been so many times where I'm like, this is it. It's done. And my parents will literally reflect back to me my strongest self. You have to find whoever that is for you.
Yeah.
And don't isolate yourself.
What's the future for CultureCon, Community Collective? What do you have up your sleeves that you can share?
Oh my goodness. Well, this is going to be a big year for CultureCon. We are introducing the Sports Summit. We have the Founder Summit. We're doing a film showcase. And I think it's going to be even more steeped in community than ever before. I just feel like the dehydration of like people needing each other. And so a lot of just kind of like building community. And I think, again, that's become a buzzword, but for me, in its most simplest form, it's creating these ecosystems where you can lean on each other. I think the other piece that's really exciting is I am working on packaging up like my framework for creative residency and just giving it to everyone.
Ooh,
so
I'd love
that
to hear that.
all my fellow can't rest, can't stop, won't stop people will have a framework for you to get back to your creative self.
Did you catch a stray like I did?
Oh my! This entire interview, I'm just like
Attack
straight to the face. But I love it, and I love that I can take things from you and take things from you. And there's so many little gems that you just dropped that I'm just putting in my pocket right now. So thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Also, you guys, like, even I think the year that I went to CultureCon, I think I didn't even know anyone. I'm okay sometimes with just going places by myself, and so I went. And the girl that I like met at the Uber drop-off location ended up spending the day with her. So like, if you're wanting to make a friend, at the very minimum, you'll walk out with a friend, maybe a boo. Listen, there's a lot of people. And just the community, like you said, that we crave so much.
Yes, like making friends, I feel like, you know, it can be hit or miss, but come to CultureCon. You will leave with so many friends.
Yeah.
I love it.
Imani, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. We're definitely going to have you back.
Thank y'all for having me. Y'all are such a good time. It was incredible.
We could go on and on. And we will always be supporting CultureCon. So thank you. And thank you guys for tuning into another episode of Off the Record. Please subscribe. It helps us so much. And you can follow us on @OffTheRecordPodcast on Instagram.
All right. We'll see y'all in the next one.